Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Sorry, we had to start at 7 because I was not available. And today's lecture is going to be very, very short. I'm sure on Saturdays, a lot of us are tired already. And so it's going to be very short, but still very, very useful. And then we continue from next week. In order not to disappoint all of us, otherwise we should have postponed, but after that, some 30, 45 minutes, we still can do something. All right. So just to start, yesterday we ended with the maturation arrest. And then we talked about early maturation or late maturation. And we said that with the late maturation, you are likely to have round sperms, because you know that the sperm up to the last stage, which is the spermiogenesis stage, it is still rounded. And so we have it as early spermatid and late spermatid. The early spermatid, that is where the sperm is going to undergo cytoskeletal changes, that the cell itself, which is round, is going to undergo a lot of internal changes, where we said one of the first things that we do is for nucleus to move to one side. And once it is central and move to one side, we say it becomes eccentric. And then the nucleus will have to pack. All right, all those things we've talked about it. So in all that stages, the sperm still look to be round. After completion of that stage, that is after the completion of the spermiogenesis. Don't confuse spermatogenesis and spermiogenesis. Spermiogenesis is a phase under spermatogenesis. And that appears to be the last stage. All right, so we're saying that during that process, the cell is supposed to transform from a round shape to the elongated shape. If there is an arrest, if there's a failure of that, then the sperm may come out still rounded. And so it's still a maturation arrest. All right. So in that case, you are going to get a lot of round cells. We don't call them round, we don't call them sperms because sometimes it becomes difficult to even differentiate that one from leukocyte. You can get leukocytospermia, where you can get, if there's an inflammation somewhere, you can get some past cells that will also find its way into the semen. In that case, you have to do a different test to be able to differentiate between the actual past cell and the round or immature sperm cells. So sometimes, in order to avoid any confusion, you collectively call them round cells. So if they are round cells, and which if they happen to be immature sperm cells, there was a maturation arrest. You can't say that this maturation arrest was an early maturation arrest, because if it were early, it would not even come to the stage where it will become a spermatid. We said that in the early maturation, it is at the point of right after the germ cell, and then we come to the the spermatogonium stage. Right after that stage, there's an arrest. It doesn't continue any longer. So how are you even going to get spermatids? So in early maturation arrest, you're not going to get anything in the seminal fluid, and it's a total azoospermia. For as long as we're able to get some of the round cells, which are actually immature sperm cells, then they are also late maturation arrest. Today, as we move along, you're going to get what we call spermiogenesis arrest. Okay, we're going to talk about that one. And then you also see there are a lot of arrests, and you should understand and know which one will cause what. All right. So now, at least the sperm has been formed. Let us know the structures, because the sperm structure, and for that matter, the shape, and for that matter, the morphology, is also one of the parameters which are assessed in semen analysis. So we are using this opportunity to know exactly how the cell shape should be, so that in doing your semen analysis, you can easily compare and contrast whether you are dealing with a normal sperm or an abnormal sperm. So we start from today. Right. So morphology refers to the form or the shape and size, and for that matter, the morphology of the sperm. So when you talk about morphology, you're talking about the form or the shape and the size of, or probably, and then of course the structure. So whichever way you look at it, structure of the sperm, shape of the sperm, morphology of the sperm, you may be talking about the same thing. And like I said, sperm morphology is one of the factors examined as part of semen analysis. And therefore, you should be able to know it very, very well if you are going to do semen analysis. Right. So we're looking at the normalities. So you look at the sperm from morphology, you're looking at the normal one. So the normal mature spermatozoa, and for this matter, when we are dealing with one, spermatozoon, consists of three main parts, which include, and we know this already, the head, you have a neck, and then the tail. So for purposes of an overview, we say that the head contains the DNA. All of us know about it. And normally has an oval acrosome, that's the cap from the Golgi bodies that will surround the nucleus. All right, so that will be all part of the head. Then we have the neck, or what you call midpiece, also called the midsection, whichever way you look at it, the same thing. And so, sorry, the he here is rather the segment. This is the segment between the head and the tail. The segment between the head and the tail. And it contains, as you know already, mitochondria. As we move along, you read that there's another component we call the axoneme. It's also contained, the axoneme comes from the microtubules. If you study the cell structure very well, a normal cell, the somatic cell, every cell will have, of course, a nucleus, will have mitochondria, will have Golgi bodies, will have the centrioles, will have what we call microtubules. These microtubules can be several of them, put them together, and they form what we call the axoneme. So it's a mix of the axoneme and then the mitochondria that actually forms the neck. The axoneme will also traverse to form together with the centrioles to form the tail. So you, as part of the neck region, if you want to look at it critically, you see that you don't only have the mitochondria, you also have the axoneme. But the axoneme is going to stretch from the inside through to the tail. It's going to combine with the central to form the tail. So you see that since it's going to form part of the tail and it's coming from the inside, it will necessarily pass through the neck region. Okay, all right. So that's just by the way. And then you also have the flagella or the tail. Now let us look at the typical appearance of a normal sperm. It's supposed to have the head, as far as the head is concerned, it's supposed to be 5 to 6 microns long. And then as for the width, it's supposed to be 2.5 to 3.5 microns wide. So you have an idea about something which is in the range of 5 to 6 microns. I'm sure you always have in mind the size of an RBC. A normal RBC is around 7 microns. So if this one is 5 to 6, It means to just be a little less than a normal RBC. Okay, and a normal RBC sometimes you also compare with the nucleus of a small lymphocyte. So once you are as a lab scientist, you should know that at least you should have an idea of the sizes. All right. So you should always have a baseline. Which one are you taking as a standard? If you're taking your standard to be that of an RBC, how does an RBC look like? So that if you know the normal form or shape or size of the normal RBC, then you be able to determine whether you're doing with macronormal size. How we know that this size is small or this size is large? So you should be able to know that this is the normal size and you have it imprinted in your mind how it looks like, so that you always be able to make whether you're dealing with a larger size or a smaller size. Right. So 5 to 6 microns long and 2.5 to 3.5 microns wide. It's supposed to be smooth, because as you move along, if you get into the abnormal cells, then you see that the shape could be rough. All right, but you know that a normal head should have a smooth outline. And so if you see a certain cell type, a certain sperm, and the head is not smooth, then it tells you that it cannot be normal. This is the import of what you're doing. All right. So the hair should be smooth, regularly contoured, and oval shaped. I'm sure all of us know what an oval shaped appearance looks like. And typically is the egg. An egg is not something like a football. Okay. An egg is something, the roundness of an egg is supposed to be oval. Okay. And so that is how it is. So it should not be round as a football. If it becomes round as football, yesterday we mentioned about the global zoospermia, where a certain protein CPD will be missing, said that the Golgi bodies, and for that matter, the acrosome will not be linked to the nucleus, and therefore to give it a round shape. So it should not be rounded, it should be oval. All right, that is what we're talking about. As soon as it becomes round, it falls into abnormality. So the normal one should be oval shaped with well-defined acrosomal region, which is the cap, and that one should cover between 40 to 70% of the sperm head. So if you have this imprinted in your mind, then you can always situate it with a certain shape that you are looking at. What is the acrosomal proportion? If it's just about 10%, and that the whole head is occupied by, let's say, the nucleus, then that could also be problematic. All right. So the acrosomal region, and for that matter, the cap, should be between 40 to 70% of the sperm head. Now it should be free of large vacuoles. All right. So when I say it should be free, the head should be, and all of us know what a vacuole is. It should be free of large vacuoles, which means that there could be vacuoles, but that vacuoles should not be large, okay, and should be small. And if they are even small, they should be not more than 2 small vacuoles, okay. So we expect that the head should be free of vacuoles, and if they are not even free of vacuoles and there are vacuoles, the vacuoles should be very small, and maximum should be 2. And if you put the 2 together, the 2 should not exceed more than 20% of the total head. All right. So these are the normalities. These are the ideal or typical conditions as is expected of a normal sperm head. I hope that you have followed it. Then we come to the midpiece. The midpiece should be slender. Because when you say something is slender, you know what it is. And about 3.5 to 5 microns in length. All right. So, which is about the same size, the same length as the sperm head. Remember, the sperm head is going from 5 to 6. So this one is from 3.5 up to 5. So it is closer to the head, but not, of course, not the same size as the head. And so it means that the mid piece should be a little bit smaller than the head. That's all that is saying. So if you have the head size equal to the mid piece, then that's a problem. All right. And the major axis of the mid piece should be aligned with the major axis of the sperm here. What it means is that if you have the head, its axis, I mean, I'm sure you know the axis, from top to down. Let's say the down part of the head. Now the mid piece, the upper part should also fit exactly with the lower part of the head. I hope that you are following it. All right, so that the major axis of the head is fitting exactly with the major axis of the mid piece, so that it's not like the thing is misshaped, like okay. If the neck is not aligning with the head, then there's a problem. This order is saying. So once you have all these things, then you are dealing with a normal, typical sperm. I hope the point is clear. So then you go to the tail. The tail is normal, uncoiled, and single tail. Now, it says uncoiled. That doesn't mean that it should always be straight. You look at it as you move along. It should be uncoiled, single tail. The principal piece, that's the main piece of the tail, should have a uniform caliber along its length. It's like as you move along, it should not be like some parts. As let's say if you look at it and let's say 3 microns, then at one point it becomes 1 micron, then 3 microns. Then no, it should have a uniform caliber so that you see that. I mean, the whole thing will it's a nice slender of a sort. Okay, now the thin, it should be thinner than the mid piece. I'm sure these days the guys who go to barber, they say they have something like called the 3 steps. Sometimes when I go and barber, the guy will ask me, that did you want a 3 step? I said, what is 3 step? Me, I don't know any 3 step. It's like from you start from one level, then you move to another level, then you move to another level. So this one is going to be like 3 step of a sort, because the head, the size of the head is one thing. As you move to the neck will also become smaller. And then as you move to the tail also becomes much smaller. So like a 3 step of a sort. So this is thinner than the mid piece. Remember, you also said that the mid piece is also slimmer. Slimmer is the same thing as thinner than the head. So you see that you are dealing with a 3 step appearance of a sort. All right. And its length is approximately 45 microns, which is about 10 times the length. Remember, we said that the length should be somewhere in the range of 3.5 to 5. And so if you're dealing with 45, and then so it's about 10 times the length of the head. That is what we are trying to do. And then remember we said that it is uncoiled. But here at the top where you say it may loop back. Loop is like coiling. Okay. Now, if you are saying coiling then coiling means it is going round, 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 round. That's now the sound of a coil. So in that case, it becomes abnormal. The tail should not uncoil. The tail should be an uncoiled single tail. But here we said may loop, which means like it can turn. But it should not show sharp angulation. What angulation? What is angulation? Where it's like the thing is coming up, and then all of a sudden coming down, all of a sudden it goes up. So that's the difference between onchocercus volvulus and then septocerca. You see, if you look at it under the microscope, then the onchocerca volvulus, the curves are, you say they are sinusoidal, you know, a sinus. All right, so it's smooth curves. And then the one from septocerca is kinky. It's like you see that it is coming here, and then all of a sudden it turns, like you can see an angle. Okay, so we call it kinky. Right. So here, when you are seeing this angulation, where when the thing is turning, it is not smooth, but it is like a sharp turn, and that sharp turn gives you something like an angle. We call it an angulation. That means that there is a break, or the flagellum or the tail is broken. Because if it were not broken, I'm told that if you are being chased by a snake, and then if you go straight, the snake can just catch up with you. But as you go in, then all of a sudden you turn, and you don't turn a curve, you turn just sharp. If the snake, I'm told, I don't know anyway, if the snake turns that sharp, then it's going to have a break, and then the snake can die. All right, but if you allow it to, if you move that smoothly, that is the game for the snake, and then that one, nothing can happen. But if it's going in and then you turn sharp, you go, it's like you are going up, and all of a sudden you turn the other way side. If the snake attempts to also turn that way, it can break, and then cause it to die. That is what, like I've said, I've heard before, but I don't know whether that's right. So that angulation tells you that there is a break in the length of the tail. All right, and that is an abnormality. However, if you have it loop, like a nice 10, 1 or 2, that's not coiling. The difference between coiling. So if it's coiled, then that's an abnormality. But if there is just it's looping 1 or 2, that's also acceptable. All right. Then we have what we call cytoplasmic droplet. This has become a subject of discussion in science, and also some confusion even within the clinical circles. Right. And so I want us to take our time to deal with it once and for all. Right. So what is cytoplasmic droplet? We're going to discuss it. And once you know what it is, it should be less than 1/3 of the normal shape of the normal sperm head. All right. So it means that it should be something small. Because if you're going to have something which is 1/3 of the normal sperm head size, then it's something small. Okay. And where should it be found? So as we move to the next slide, we're going to look extensively on cytoplasmic droplets. All right. So you already know the head, you already know the neck and the midpiece, you already know the tail. What you may not know too much about is a cytoplasmic droplet, which we are going to discuss extensively. All right. So this is just a schematic presentation of a normal sperm. So you see here, this is normal. This is looping. This is not coiling. Coiling is where probably it will turn and turn and turn and turn and turn. This is normal. This looping. Okay. Now, of course, you will have the acrosome, you have the nucleus, you have the central, and then it says the central that will extend to become the tail. All right. So, and then you also have the mitochondria, which is in the midpiece here, and you have this extension with the axoneme. All right. So, the acrosome, the cell, this is just pictorialism. You are very much familiar with these kind of pictures and presentations already. So this the normality, normal sperm. All right. Then please let's pay more attention here on this. Today's lecture is going to be very short. So the most important thing is with the cytoplasmic droplets, which most of us probably are not familiar with. So it starts like this. Although the cytoplasm of spermatids, and I'm sure at this point you know what are spermatids. That is about the last stage of the spermatogenesis. And we have the early spermatids and then late spermatids. And we said that during spermiogenesis, the early spermatids, which are rounded, will now undergo this kind of cytoplasmic changes. Okay, right. And then by the time it is finished, it will get to a late spermatid, which will now become like the normal sperm that we know, elongated. Now, we remember we said that the Sertoli cell is in control of all this, right from the beginning of the germ cell development up to the last point. Now, we said that the cellular elements, which are not so needed, will have to be phagocytosed. Now, I left something out yesterday, and we are going to try to use it as we explain the cytoplasmic droplets. Now, in the process, we said that the Sertoli cell will phagocytose something, the residual bodies. But something should happen before the phagocytosis will take place. Nobody asked me. Because if the cytoplasm, so if the Sertoli cell is phagocytosing, phagocytosis will involve a whole element being absorbed into another, being absorbed by another cell. So if you say that the Sertoli cell is going to phagocytose the residual bodies, meanwhile the residual bodies too are within the cell, the spermatid, which is developing. So are you saying that the solution is going to engulf or phagocytose the entire thing? You understand? So, like I'm saying, yesterday I expected somebody to have asked me, you didn't. Just as we said that right from the word go, initially we said that, oh, when the cells are developing, they'll have two pathways. Either they will go back to self-renewal or go ahead and become mature. Then you, as you move along, you realize that that wasn't true. Okay, those that are going to mature, there are too many for the Sertoli cell, and you know that Sertoli cells is going to mature all these things. It's going to control all these things. If there are too many, someone will have to be allowed to die. So it means that it's no longer a two-way pathway. It's not two pathways, it rather become three pathways. You either go back to become part of the self-renewal, or you go back, you go into maturation, and if you're lucky, you succeed and become mature sperm, or along the line you die. And we also learned that a lot of them would rather die rather than even maturing. Okay, so it now becomes three pathways. So we say this thing is also coming up that you have the cells that is undergoing spermiogenesis, where it is transforming. Some of the elements are used. For example, the nucleus is used up, the Golgi bodies is used up, mitochondria is used up. Now you're saying that centrals are used up, and then even the microtubules are also used up. The rest which are not needed, they will have to be absorbed. But before the Sertoli cell will phagocytose it, they have to extrude it. That is what I expected somebody to ask. So if it's going to, if the Sertoli cell is going to phagocytose, is it going to take up the entire, what do you call it? Is it going to take up the entire spermatid? Of course, no. So say the Sertoli cell will have to force the developing spermatid to bring out the things that it doesn't need. They call that cytoplasmic extrusion. You have to vomit, if I'm allowed to use that word. Those things that you don't need, bring them out. Still under the control, because everything that is happening is under the control of the Sertoli cell. The Sertoli cell will force the developing spermatid to bring out the things that it doesn't need. The things that it doesn't need, bring them out so that I can now take them out. So that is cytoplasmic extrusion. You are extruding, you are bringing out the things that, like vomiting those things that you don't need. Once that's extruded, these things come out, they stay part of the residual bodies, but they are no longer within the cell. They have been forced to come out. And now the Sertoli cell can now phagocytose that aspect. Otherwise, if you say that, oh, the Sertoli cell is going to phagocytose residual bodies, the residual bodies are those remnants which are not needed, but they are still within the cytoplasm of the spermatid, and for that matter, the developing sperm. So if he has to take it up, it means that something must happen, and that stage is very, very, very critical. All right. So I have to say this because if you have to understand cytoplasmic droplet, then you have to appreciate the fact that, oh, we are saying that the cytoplasmic droplet is normal. How does it become normal? And so you should also understand this process that I'm talking about. All right. So let's move on. So in other words, spermatozoa normally retain a small amount of the droplet around the mid-piece after spermiogenesis. I'm sure you understand spermiogenesis. That's the process that you are talking about. So we are saying that there's going to be cytoplasmic extrusion. Bring the things that you're going to bring them out. But even as you bring them out, some still remain. Okay, a little will remain. That little remains, some textbooks call it microplasm. You see, because cytoplasm is the plasma within the cell, cytoplasm. So here it is also the plasma, which is now going to be around the neck. And the neck is made up of mitochondria. So it becomes the plasma around the mitochondria. So some people call it mitoplasm. Okay, but that is not what we are saying. What we are saying is that the residue that will come out, still there was something left, something small will be left. And that something that will be left will form like a residue around the, what do you call it? Around the neck area. Okay, around the neck area. And that one is normal. And that is what is termed as cytoplasmic droplet. All right. So see, these are normal component of sperm. And they are found at the end of the midpiece in the mature sperm, at the end of the midpiece. So it means that you are going to see them between the neck and then the, what do you call the tail. They are going to be around that place. And it's normal. Very, very, very normal as you move out. Let's see how, as you move around, When does it become abnormality? Good. So as we said, in the tubular lumen, okay, of the testis, Sertoli cells extrude and phagocytose most of the germ cells. So like I've said over again, we don't expect the Sertoli cells to phagocytose the entire developing sperm cell. Otherwise, then what you are not going to achieve anything. All right. Rather, it will force the Sertoli cells will force the the spermatid to bring out the things that it doesn't need. And that I've explained already, called cytoplasmic extrusion. That must happen before the Sertoli cells will now phagocytose. So cytoplasmic extrusion and Sertoli cell phagocytosis, they are the same, it's like the same phenomenon, the same procedures. And all this will happen as part of the steps that will ensure that the sperm become mature. Okay, and these are all processes that happen in the spermiogenesis, not spermatogenesis, spermiogenesis. So that becomes like the last, so it is during the last maturation phase of spermiogenesis that the cytoplasmic droplet is formed. Because we are saying that in the final analysis, there should be cytoplasmic extrusion of unwanted or residue, the organelles which are not needed. That is the cytoplasmic extrusion. And then once they are extruded, the Sertoli cells will pick them up. By this stage, we are saying that once that is finished, there will still be small remnants of the cytoplasm, which will be hanging around the neck area. And this is what we call the cytoplasmic droplet. And we're saying that it is very, very normal, very normal. Now, let's look at something we call excess residual cytoplasm. So we're going to look at the CDs versus, now I think, let me see if, yes. So I think I didn't explain this well. The cytoplasmic droplets and excess residual cytoplasm. What's the difference? The difference is that we've said that during the maturation process in spermiogenesis, the unwanted organelles, residues, will be extruded in a process called cytoplasmic extrusion. And then now this becomes phagocytosed by the Sertoli cells. Okay. Now, when the remains are small, they are called the cytoplasmic droplets. If even after the extrusion, there's still a lot of the cytoplasm which is still left hanging, then it's like they have become larger cytoplasmic droplets. Those ones are called excess residual cytoplasm. And that one is rather pathological of, for that matter, an abnormality. I hope the point is clear. I hope the point is clear. So cytoplasmic droplets versus excess residual cytoplasm. So ordinarily, cytoplasmic droplets are normal. But when that, and we know how the cytoplasmic droplets are developed. So now everybody can understand it. If after the residual, so the extrusion, there's still a lot of remnants remaining within the neck area, then it's like they are becoming larger cytoplasmic droplets. In that one, they are no longer cytoplasmic droplets. They are excess residual cytoplasm, and that's called ERC, excess residual cytoplasm. So now we are now going to look at excess residual cytoplasm versus the cytoplasmic droplets. So the retention of excess cytoplasm around the midpiece due to arrest in spermiogenesis and incomplete cytoplasmic extrusion causes what is now known as excess residual cytoplasm. So this is just what I've been explaining all over. So remember that we're saying that the cytoplasmic extrusion and the phagocytosis, they are all processes within the spermiogenesis phase. All right, so if the extrusion occurs and phagocytosis also occurs, and after the extrusion, there's a small amount of cytoplasm leaving, that's normal. But if there is a failure or there's an interruption in the extrusion phase, then it means that there's still going to be some remnants or a large proportion of cytoplasm still being left. And you see that procedure is within the spermiogenesis phase. I hope that you are following it. You are not confused. The extrusion and then the phagocytosis, they are all part of the processes of the spermiogenesis. Now, since there has been an incomplete cytoplasmic extrusion, then what can we say? Then you can say that there's an arrest in the spermiogenesis phase. So you call it spermiogenesis arrest. I hope you're not confused. So we've talked about maturation arrest. And now we're talking about spermiogenesis arrest. Okay. All right. Any question on spermiogenesis arrest? So there is the spermiogenesis process. That's where you are going to have the cytoplasmic extrusion. That's where you are going to have the Sertoli cell to phagocytose. Now, if there's a problem with the extrusion, you are going to have a lot of the cytoplasm still remaining, and that will hang on the neck of the sperm cell to cause excess cytoplasmic residue or excess residual cytoplasm, whichever. Now, in that case, you can attribute ERC to an arrest in spermiogenesis, not spermatogenesis. So these are some of the terminologies that I wanted to bring along so that you now know that you have schooled in seminology. All right. Any problem? These are the things that we wanted to discuss today properly. So on the whole, smaller CDs, and for that matter, smaller cytoplasmic droplets are normal morphological occurrences in human spermatozoa. So you don't say that you have seen a cytoplasmic droplet and therefore it's an abnormality. It's normal. Unless what you are seeing is large. So the last point is that CDs, and for that matter, cytoplasmic droplets observed in air-dry semen smears. That is, if you have done your semen and you want to check on the morphology. Now, they should be considered morphological defects when they are large. That's greater than 1/3 or 1/2 of the sperm head. This is excess residual cytoplasm. And so you're looking FSH, that's follicle stimulating hormone, and or androgens, and for that matter, testosterone. These are the primary hormone regulators of spermatogenesis. You know this right from day one. Whenever you have suppression of FSH and androgens, they can cause spermiogenesis arrest. Once they cause spermiogenesis arrest, they will cause ERC, not CDs. Okay, I hope the point is clear. All right. So I've said over and over again, the hormones control spermatogenesis. And don't confuse spermatogenesis and spermiogenesis. Spermiogenesis is one of the phases of spermatogenesis. And there could be an arrest in there. The arrest in there will not cause, one of the causes will lead to the ERC. So apart from the FSH, what other thing can cause spermiogenesis arrest? Organophosphorus pesticides, and we know this one. Exposure to organophosphorus pesticide, they can also cause, and I think discuss this one over and over again when you're talking about the chemicals that affect the chemicals that affect spermatogenesis. You talk about the OP, organophosphorus pesticide. So exposure to it will lead to spermiogenesis and therefore will also lead to ERCs. Okay. Then we also have what we call cyclin dependent kinase, CDKs. CDKs are some of the things that are required for normal cell divisions. Okay, right. It's been known, and we have several of them. So if you talk about CDKs, cyclin-dependent kinases, several of them. So we have a particular about what I call a CDK16. If you lack it, then it becomes genetic. If you lack it, then it can also lead to spermiogenesis arrest. All right. Let's look at this picture and you let's look at this picture and it will summarize everything. That is cytoplasmic droplet and the excess residual. This picture will explain everything. So let me see if I can get. All right. So if the normal with the normal development, so this is the excess cytoplasm, and it's so small, so it becomes cytoplasmic droplet. This one's around the mitochondria here. So you see something like this. These are all normal. So if you see the neck, you don't say that the neck is even bigger than the head. No, these are just cytoplasmic droplets, which is making the neck area look bigger. And it's normal, please. Very, very normal. Now, let's look at this one. This one, you will see that the excess cytoplasm here is too big. And so if you compare this one with this one, you see that these ones are smaller and these ones are larger. So the difference between CD and is basically by size. I've said this simply by size. So you look at this one and you see that the excess cytoplasm here is bigger. And so that causes excess residual cytoplasm. And this one is an abnormality. So if you look at the A here, A is spermatozoa with typical cytoplasmic droplets. And the B here is spermatozoa presenting with excess residual cytoplasm. And like we said, the factors that will cause spermiogenesis arrest. And remember, it is spermiogenesis arrest that will cause the ERCs. Because we're saying that during spermiogenesis, we expect cytoplasmic extrusion. We And so that becomes spermiogenesis arrest. And talking about FSH and androgen suppression, and we've known this, that spermiogenesis is hormone dependent. And so if you have FSH, then also